My name is Dirk Bakker. I'm head of EMEA for Colliers International. And I am extremely honored to preside this group of distinguished gentlemen informed in a panel, because what we have here is the future possibly of the hotel industry, or the future changes of the hotel industry. And quickly, an introduction I will make to you, starting with Charlie Osmond. Charlie is the chief tease of a company called Triptease. His background is in engineering, Oxford, and he has won the Young Entrepreneur of the Year award a few years ago, called by Esquire. The Triptease does direct bookings, price comparisons, and is a big time saver. We'll get to the subject a little further as we go along. We have Preben Vesdam sitting here, who is an absolute veteran in the industry, I must say. Started his career in, he's the CEO and founder of Hotel Swaps, I should start with. He was president and CEO of RCI, worked for Wyndham, was heading the loyalty program of Amex in the past. He worked for IBM, Club Med, and what have you not done, Preben? I mean, an incredible career in that sense. Hotel Swaps is basically what Hotel Swaps does is leveraging available hotel rooms with affiliate hotels through a points currency system. We have Gon sitting there, Gon Ben David. He is the CEO and founder of Rumor.com and a true entrepreneur. He founded it, and he is also on the advisory board for the travel section of Berkshire Hathaway. Incredible. So Rumor.com, sorry guys, what Rumor.com does, they basically leverage leverage cancellations of hotels, which are usually cost a lot of money, and then you can resell those cancellations through a website, and everybody makes money. Both the hotels, clients, everybody's happy. The last one to my left, Stefan Tewazer. Recently joined as CEO of Snapshot. Prior, he was CEO of Google for Germany, Switzerland, and Austria. He worked as a partner for McKinsey and has a background in telecom. And today he is CEO of Snapshot. And Snapshot is basically all about data, big data, I should say, and providing services to the hotel industry on the basis of analytics and information providing on the data that hotels themselves have and generate. So we're starting off today what I think is going to have to be a very interesting discussion. Even in the prior preparation to this, we already ended up in discussions ourselves, and with a lot of laughs also, because the industry is changing very much. And to start off with the first question, I guess we should talk about perhaps Preben, or sorry, Preben, for you the question. What do you see are the main challenges that the industry is going to face in the next few years?
Wow, there's a number of challenges out there, of course. I think when you look at the hospitality industry, it's been spoken a lot about the challenges of the OTAs, so the strengths of the OTAs and the value that they, so say, drive out of the hotel investments of the various companies around the world. So OTAs is one thing. There's another one which is around the change of the consumer. You know, the traditional loyalty of you stay with one airline and one hotel company throughout your life is not really functioning anymore with the new generations which are moving through the system. So that's other challenges. We have the new types of inventory which is joining the industry, such as the Airbnbs and the house trips of the world, where alternative types of accommodation is brought, rightly so, to the industry, but it's of course competing with the traditional hotels. So the number of challenges, there are many of them. Hopefully we can help the industry at this panel.
Well, let's ask Stefan, what is to you the major challenge that the industry is facing?
I think I'm not from the hospitality industry, so I have to, you have to be patient with me. I only know the hospitality industry from the other side of the counter. So I have a hard time kind of commenting on individual challenges. But what, from my perspective, is the ground root to all the challenges is how the hospitality industry handles data, how important data for them is as a strategic tool, and subsequently how important IT decisions are on a C-level. Is data, information, and data technology really considered a strategic advantage for hospitality players, or is it not? I find it to a certain extent surprising, not coming from the industry, but having a different background, that IT is not considered to be among the premier strategic influences of the hotel industry.
So we'll come back to the IT subject in a little while, because I think that is a red line through the change driving that's taking place. Charlie, can you in 30 seconds tell us your opinion on the
well, I think it does depend a lot on which bits of the industry we're talking about and who the challenge faces, and I think it depends geographically as well. But actually, top of my list was mobile data ownership, which I think you can speak to very well, because I think the hoteliers are walking sleepwalking their way into losing data ownership and relationships, and also data security. I know there was a mention of, I think maybe a panel on it yesterday. I think that is just one of the world's biggest threats to any business that operates digitally, which is all of them. So certainly I think that's something that hotels will see a lot more of in the next couple of years.
Excellent. Don, can you second that?
Sure. I think that technology is not only about IT, it's also about customer experience. I think so many hotels today are still using faxes, and this must change, because hotels that use faxes or don't use internet well enough on mobile are not going to lose only the next year, but they're going to lose the next 10 years. And when you see hotels outsource all of their technology somewhere else, they have less and less updated customer experience. I think this is one of the biggest risks. And the second thing from my point of view is the cancellation fees. So many hotels do not know how much it actually costs for them to cancel a room. So many refundable rooms are being canceled every day, and technology companies are taking advantage of the lack of knowledge of hotels in technology to actually automatically cancel hotel reservations that are being booked on their websites. So
let's talk about that a little bit on technology, on the technology side of things. When we had this preparation, I told you I was interviewed earlier today, and the interviewer asked me what my biggest pet peeve was, in hotels. And I told you guys, it happened to me in the hotel where I'm staying. I had to stand in queue, I had to fill out a form, and meanwhile I've stayed at that hotel 5 times.
Right.
No, this is one of those things. This is about customer experience, you know, and I have a little bit of background that I understand what's happening in technology, but not as much as you guys. But I see Micros Fidelio still ruling. Is that going to change? Stefan?
Everyone, I think, who looks at the Micros Fidelio business model would, I think, immediately draw a comparison between how Micros Fidelio as a product works and how a VCR back in the 1980s worked to a certain extent. Yeah. All that you wanted to do is press play and record, but it still came with a manual that was 5-inch thick. So it had a lot of features built in that only very few people used. Mm-hmm. But in addition to that, Micros Fidelio and other PMS providers at that make a lot of money based on legacy business. Mm-hmm. So I think the impulse to change will not come from them. The impulse to change needs to come from the hoteliers who use that system. And some of you potentially know how painful it is to get data out of your own PMS. It's the system that you paid for, it's the hardware that you paid for, it's the services that you pay for, it's your data, and still getting that data out of the system is a pain.
So Micros Fidelio makes a lot of money. Because I'm assuming that everything is a paid service, isn't it?
Most of them is, and every individual report is a paid service, which is in the days of data in the cloud and online reporting and all this stuff to a certain extent ridiculous. And the industry needs to recognize that data ownership, as we said, is going to be one of the key elements of being competitive in the future. If you don't own customer data, if you don't own your hotel's data, if you don't use that data to make better decisions, then I'm afraid to say there's not much future in your business.
Wow. Charlie? I see you looking, you have something to add, I know that.
Yeah, no, I think it's, I don't know, I imagine there are hoteliers in the audience who could better answer why they remain on a certain PMS than I can. Definitely, we've seen a lot of new cloud PMSs sort of begin in the last few years. Some of them got traction. I think Trivago last week bought one. So maybe the change is imminent because perhaps with sort of Expedia also going to hotel services, Booking doing the same. People like SiteMinder, who having conquered distribution, might then decide to go to a different part of the stack. I think the potential's there. It really depends on sort of someone, a provider, building the capability, because it's really complicated to build a great PMS, and then hoteliers taking a gamble on it. So, and the second bit, as I say, there's probably people in the audience who could better answer why they might be sitting with their PMS they've had for years and sticking with it.
Is there any hotelier here in the room who wants to add something to that? Why you're still using Microsoft Fidelio? Can you please stand up and mention your name as well?
Just imagine all those materials of IHG. You notice at the margin bar that printer of Microsoft?
Yeah, it takes a lot of time, doesn't it?
It's just crazy.
Yeah.
But can you imagine all those hotels shifting to a cloud? It's a project of 10 years.
Yeah.
Well, we had a discussion about that before, and I'm going to ask you another question on that. We had a discussion when we, why is it, and maybe someone in the audience or here can get into that. Why can you not build a cloud-based system, and once it's operating, you throw away the old one? That's the question. Anybody?
Old data. I think it's that data, and there's a big training overhead as well. It was good. It was like Alcoholics Anonymous in here for a moment there. Just like, I used to have, but I think when I think about like disruption, which I know the panel's meant to be about, it feels like that's the one bit of the hotelier's infrastructure that is probably in most need and most desire of disruption.
That's
but
right.
We'll wait to see if it happens if someone does.
Yeah. But isn't it also that all the loyalty systems, which in the minds of hotels, and God knows they are very important, also attached to that same system. And to throw that away, there's a big risk, because there you're playing again with customer data, aren't you? Yeah. Interesting. But if you look at, for instance, companies like Citizen M, where I regularly stay, you get a card, you check in, it's all automated, so there's no aggravation with somebody that might give you the wrong service. Because I checked in the other day and I had to fill out a form in a hotel where I stayed 5 times. They should know my data. They have them on store. There's all data protection, I understand all that, but there's no reason why I can give my consent. Citizen M does that. It recognizes me, gives me a card, and when I go to the bar, coming back to you, who recently changed, I go back to the bar, I just hold my key to it, and I don't need to do anything. It comes automatically on my room. Now that I find service. Why do other hotels not do that? Paul Rinkens, I see you sitting in the back there. You're the chief imagination officer of Cuic. How do you deal with that technology? Can you share that with us? Because also you have a different way of looking at it.
We don't deal with it, the customer does. So you just have to listen to him or her and come up with a solution.
But how does the customer do it? Because how do you check into your hotel? You don't have to do anything when you check into your hotel.
It takes 10 seconds.
Yeah. And why is that?
I don't know. We did it differently.
So you didn't design the technology. You just wanted the concept.
As you had that experience, I have it as well. If I travel a lot, it doesn't make sense that you can walk into an airplane, apart from the passport control, and that you can make your reservation at home, you can check in at home, and that if you go to a hotel after you left the airport, you go back to the Middle Ages. So.
Wow, there's a lot of things to be done in the industry. Thanks, Paul. Thanks. Now, recently also there was the CEO panel. I did not see it myself, but some of you saw it, and we mentioned the word complacency. The leaders in the hotel industry, I know I'm going on thin ice here, but
We've been sat back.
No, but I think it is something that's happening in the industry. Young people are the Generation X or the Generation Y, or today the digital natives, as we now call them. It's basically kids. A digital native is a kid that's born with one hand and one screen. You know, they think differently, and they are the ones that are driving the change. Is it right for hotel companies to have CEOs or C-level people that are over 50? What do you think? It's thin ice, I know.
Yeah, is that the same thing with consultants?
You're right. You're right. You're right.
There should definitely be a rule about ages. Absolutely.
There should be a rule.
But it was interesting yesterday. It did feel there were 3 of the CEOs on the panel. It wasn't. I wouldn't. Complacency's a loaded term, but certainly when the discussion of Airbnb, it felt like they were persuading themselves this wasn't something they needed to watch out for quite so much as the rest of people nodding heads. And that was interesting to note. And I think that might be because it's a bit like boiling frogs. The ways that Airbnb is already having an impact are a little bit hidden. So actually, for example, in the office we work at in New York, there's also a hedge fund. And they did some research so they could start shorting hotels, I think, I'm afraid to say, was the goal. They did some research looking at what they call compression nights in New York. So they were looking particularly at those really hot and not in the sort of important dates in the calendar where every New York hotel knows they're going to sell out. So it's the US Open, it's the New York Marathon. And what they found was that since Airbnb properties have, in the last couple of years have become more prevalent in the city, that on those really big nights when the hoteliers would be able to make a disproportionate profit because their hotel prices used to be 3 to 4x higher than the ADR on those big nights, now they're only able to get them like 2x the ADR. So they felt that it's actually Airbnb is having an impact in specific instances on specific behavior, and that might be why it's not yet felt broadly. I mean, I did think they had very good points yesterday, sorry, in the CEO's panel about why there are differences. Myself, there are times when I would travel and stay in Airbnb, there are times when I wouldn't. And I think there are definite differences.
Yeah, good. That leads me to a next question. The many new generation business models, like yourselves and others, are they generally adding or destroying value for investors? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I'll cover that one. I think of course, you need to look at each one of them and see how they are being applied. I think there are definitely friends and foes out there, if you look at it from a hotel investor point of view or hotel operator point of view. What we have done is to try to look at the sharing economy, which is basically about sharing unused inventory or available capacity out there and try to share that with like-minded people. And you can look at, for instance, at an Airbnb, it's not really sharing, it's like selling. So it's a selling economy, not a sharing economy. But at the end of the day, the Ubers and the Airbnbs of the world, they are now creating on different inventories, so not the hotels, but they find the bedrooms and the spare time in a car, and they bring that to a community of like-minded people. Now, what we are doing, for instance, we are trying to turn that around, and we are saying, well, we have a bunch of hoteliers out there. They also have an unused capacity. It's 35% of all the rooms around the world. It's billions of hotel rooms every year, which are standing empty. Let's try to share them within the industry. So create a network of hoteliers which can benefit from really sharing the access to these hotels. So you can both take the models and you can take it by model and you can take it company by company. It all depends on which one you're looking at. I think all at this table here is all friends. It's all disruptive but positive from a hotel investment point of view. And then you have the Airbnbs and the house trips and the OTAs of the world, which is maybe potentially taking up value away from the investors. So one by one, and then we'll see what if it's plus or minus.
Yeah, but it's interesting to see that kind of the latest wave of new businesses in that space is actually really there to support hoteliers in their business model and not taking revenue or margin away from them. So I think when you look at it from an investor perspective, the judgment of whether a business model really supports an hotelier or wants to integrate into the value chain without really providing additional value, over proportionally taking value away? That's the question that you need to be asking.
Yeah.
So one, I think that is interesting to get Gon's view.
Yeah,
but one trend that we see that we think is dangerous for hotels and scary are people like TripBam. And someone told me, though I've not seen it live yet on Trivago, the ability to cancel and rebook on an automated basis.
Right.
Because if people are setting robots up to cancel and rebook, there are going to be a hell of a lot more cancellations. Revenue management goes up in the air. And I think maybe Gon has a solution.
I want to hear that.
But
So I just want to mention that we are now on Trivago ads on TV in the US, so they are a great partner for us. But I'll try to answer on all of them really quickly. I think that on that, we really need to separate between the two ends of the scale. One is hype, where things are created and there is a lot of hype in Focusrite or in T-News and Skift, and there is not enough value, or as Charlie said, destructive value, because companies are getting revenue by destroying someone else's revenue management. On the other hand, you have hubris, where we can see that it's very similar to what happened between Netflix and Blockbuster. Hotels should not be Blockbuster. You should really endorse technology and understand that what happened with Netflix can happen now with hotels. Basically, what Airbnb did, and I'm not talking about regulation or sharing economy, I'm not going to use the hype words. What they actually did was to create a platform where everyone becomes a hotelier. If you like it or not, the real estate agency down the street is now competing with Hilton, and the new generation don't really care about the brand as much as someone thinks they care about. And that connects to the age. I think that one of the best lectures I've ever seen was the Accor CEO on Focusrite. I don't know his age, but I think that his passion to the hospitality industry made him open Accor to all platforms. So I really think that value is here to stay. And about that, we really need to talk about value and about what should be created. And technology has real value. It's not something you can just outsource and be innovative. If you're not ruling your own technology, you will never have a good check-in or check-out experience because you don't develop it. And I think that many CRS and PMS systems should move towards really easy Salesforce-type incremental changes that will move hotels to do changes with a click and not with a developer time that costs a lot of money. So that's a long answer to the short question you asked.
Yeah, I mean, I want to elaborate a little bit more on that. If you, it was only a few years ago that we, actually a year ago, 2 years ago, that we saw change coming in terms of Wi-Fi. There was a lot of hotels, and they still are there, where you actually still have to pay for Wi-Fi. If I come into my room and I have to flip to, in a local, for instance, in Germany, with all respect, I'm not interested in German television, I want to see some news, but I have to flip through 20 channels to get to BBC or whatever is available. And meanwhile, everybody today is on Netflix, and I haven't found the first hotel yet where I got Netflix in my room. So why is that not happening? Charlie?
I think I know. The answer to that is, well, look, there are 4 of us here who sell fabulous, fantastic, value-adding services to hotels. And then there's Netflix. Hoteliers have got a lot to do, right? We're all offering things that could be great. Netflix is another. There's just too many all at once. So I think the hotels can only take on
so much.
Exactly, they can only take on a certain number of new projects every year, and it's hard. It's hard, like
All right.
I think if you boil it down to what's the essential question is, who owns the customer data? Who has the knowledge what you would want when you enter your room? Who has the knowledge of automating your check-in, check-out process? Who has the knowledge of making you an offer that's so individual that you actually don't care so much about the price? And if you look at the current landscape in hospitality, it's rarely the hoteliers that really have that extended knowledge about you as a guest.
Right.
It's the OTA, it's the travel agent, it's some middleman that most likely has control over that data. So what happens is commoditization of hotel rooms, price competition in areas where it's potentially not necessary because there is still the possibility to address you as a customer with a very individual need that can be a price, a bundle, a hotel experience, a better check-in experience, your preferred channels on the TV when you enter the room. All this is based on who owns the customer data, who as a C-level in the hospitality industry has the interest to change his or her company strategy based on real data insights.
Okay, so if we go over to that subject, we have recently seen that Marriott has basically bought Starwood. So consolidation in the hotel industry is taking place. We see that more and more, and it will continue very likely. So you're getting, let's say that you end up with 2-3 major concentrations of hotel companies with an enormous amount of brands in there, an enormous amount of loyalty cards, because at the end of the day, owning customer data, the way, is it correct that I'm saying that the hotel companies think that by having a loyalty card, they have customer data? And by having that, they can actually approach the customer and lure them to book direct through their own CMS system. So will that become a competitor to the Expedias, to the Booking.coms? Yes or no? Charlie, maybe that's a good question for you to start with.
So I think that loyalty is definitely one part of what Marriott-Starwood sort of alliance drives. The main thing that, though, I heard and read about every time people from within were talking about the deal was that it was about a competitive reaction to the strength and power of the OTAs, and that's something which I think this is a fascinating year to be in the industry, because I think there's a lot of changes happening around that, and hotels in 2015 and now in 2016 are finally standing up and saying, we want more people direct. We need direct bookings, not only because we pay lower commissions, but also because then it starts a relationship that drives further future loyalty and ability to get more data about customers in the long run. And sort of indications of that preparedness to stand up and tackle the mighty force of OTAs is, we see with the Hilton Book Direct adverts, even the Accor ads that just came out, is a major part of that that's all about Book Direct for the best price. So I think part of that merger is about having power against the online travel agents, and that's a wider industry shift towards hotels standing up for direct bookings.
Okay, so I get you I follow you for quite a bit, but we're talking about brands. There are also a lot of individual hotels. Go to Italy, and it's highly unconsolidated. There's the larger percentage, and these people don't have large budgets for advertising.
Right.
Now, Booking.com, Expedia, they're great advertising channels. So what are you willing to pay? Do you have a budget of 20% on advertisement? Or are you willing to pay 20% to Booking.com and just sit back and wait until the bookings drop and the customers come through the door? Gone?
I think it's a matter of knowing where you stand. I think that Booking.com did create a lot of value, especially in Europe, in difference from the US, where 85% of the hotels are chain hotels. So if you have the ability to compete and get the traction yourself, then you should do it. But what I really think is that the whole question of what loyalty really is, would you still keep your cards in 20 years from now, and you will be a loyalty member in a hotel? I think that hotels should really ask what loyalty means to them and what their brands stand for. And if it's a small hotel, boutique hotel in Rome that has a great cuisine and serves great pasta, then yeah, they maybe stand out in a different way. So I think that telling a story or sharing an experience is far more important than just calculating the ROI. Both are important, but more hotels, brands as well as boutique, should really focus on creating experiences. I know I've been traveling in Berlin for the past weekend, and all I did was collecting experiences, both in hotels and also I stayed in Airbnb, and I'm staying now in Roomer. So I think that if you focus on experience, and it goes back to technology, knowing your customer and everything that we mentioned here, you have far better potential to say, hey, I'm staying in this cool hotel, I'm sharing that on Facebook, I'm sharing that on Instagram. You're going to get organic travelers that you didn't pay for, just coming from other people having fun in your hotel. And that's what hotels really have leverage on Booking.com. They create their experience.
Okay, so if you look at what Charlie's doing, Charlie is giving hotels the opportunity to see price comparisons, right, on their own websites. Yeah. This is pretty cool. Now, if you look at that, and you look at what Google, and this is going to be a question for you, Stefan, Of course, you have that experience, obviously. That's all right. You can bounce off the question if you like.
I will.
No, but so Google could actually become an experience provider, and then and not make money perhaps on bookings, but allow through the experience, which you can find on Google, to let people go direct to the websites of hotels.
Google business model is ads. Whatever 90-something% of whatever Google does, from cars to Gmail, whatever, goes down to ads. So they've been playing a game for 5 years of we're going to, after buying ITA, of creating travel search. I think that what happened was that more niche searches became more popular. For example, Kayak or Trivago have went, and they were panicked and they went directly to branding. The consolidation there with Expedia and Trivago and Skyscanner now worth $1.6 billion just happened because people really like the experience of having the search that they trust on. And on that end, I think that what Charlie is doing with Triptease is adding more transparency to the booking funnel is what people are looking for. So will Google dominate that? I don't know. It's been there
Can they?
I think it's not a question of dominating. The question that the hoteliers need to ask themselves, and that's pretty similar to what you said, is that at the end of the day, you need to make up your mind what's the cost of distribution that you can afford. How much money would you want to invest in either going through Booking or through Google or to other forms of advertising that you need to do to fill your hotel? And I think cost of distribution, again, is a matter of who owns your data. Are you, as an hotelier, able to answer how much money did you pay for selling that particular room? And then you can make a transparent decision of whether that channel Booking or that channel Google or that channel print advertising or that channel Facebook was the right thing to do. You need to make a decision based on data and not based on a gut feeling that you cannot back up with analysis.
All right, so let's go a step further. If we make comparisons to other industries that are basically in that space of owning data, there's two companies that come to mind when I'm sitting here. One is the payment systems, Visa, MasterCard. So they have data, they have access to data, they can track spend, they're pretty on that edge. And the second one is Apple. Apple's trying to do something with Apple Wallet. So is there a possible collaboration that we can see towards the future when the PMS systems are too stringent, and apparently from what we're learning here that they're inflexible to extract data, to take control over the data? Collaboration with Visa, MasterCard?
I think names that you need to mention there are PayPal, WeChat Pay, Alipay. Those are the companies that are on the forefront of owning your wallet. And if you own your wallet, you to a certain extent own the loyalty. Because every time you pay with PayPal, they collect your data. Every time you pay with WeChat in China, they collect your data. They understand before you do that you are going to buy a coffee. Because they know where you are, they know when you bought your last one, they know which brand that you usually buy is nearby. So the combination of mobile payment, location-based services, and loyalty programs, from my perspective, from our perspective, will be the most critical question. That over lunch we discussed scary examples of that, but again, it's a great example of how deep you need to understand your customer to be able to make the right proposition at the right point in time.
Okay. Charlie?
Yeah, I'm trying to think if hotels are going to get a lot of value from the data that payments providers could give them, and I'm not sure. I think there's huge value in for hoteliers, for those payment providers taking the next step. So if, for example, we in the Western world had a confidence in a payment system like people from China have in Alipay, where they'll buy anything on their mobile, and they're more likely to because there's just a single easy way to buy. If we had that, it would make it would make the job of converting people to buy through a hotelier on a mobile phone far, far easier. And when I think about the future and 3-4 years from now, what will we have to be doing on hotel mobile sites to drive up conversion? I think the biggest challenge is that your booking app or your Expedia app will already have your credit card details, whereas if you're browsing the web, you may not. It's more of a challenge to actually then to pay. So I think the holding the customer data, the credit card data is valuable, but I don't think we're going to get much value as hoteliers from insights that we gather from MasterCard.
Okay.
I would add there and defend my former employer that it's slightly different with American Express, because when you talk about Visa and MasterCard, it's banks which are basically running those networks, and you have one bank, NatWest or somebody, owns the customer, and there's another bank which owns the merchant. So therefore, there's kind of a disconnect in between. The full set and full understanding of the client doesn't sit in any of those two owners of the data. In American Express, they own both the card member and the merchant relationship. So therefore, you see a lot of relationship where American Express, for the larger hospitality clients, are working very closely to utilize that data of the people that are spending in the various. So it depends also on which payment provider that you are dealing with.
I understand that. So no, the word Alipay has fallen. Last year, there was a 30% increase of influx of Chinese or Asian tourists and travelers to Europe. It's likely not going to decrease. It's going to increase. Are we seeing any disruptors? Are we seeing any payment systems, for that matter? Because if the Chinese love to do everything but a click on a button, because they are very advanced in using handhelds, isn't it something that we should have that here in Europe as well and start implementing that? Con, what do you think?
Of course. I think that moving into new technologies for payments such as Alipay, etc., and Amazon Wallet, here I paid in cash for everything. It shows the difference between Europe and the US and of course, Asia. And I think that the potential here is to move data to information and information into knowledge and knowledge into experience. And think about places like the Soho House, which lead here with RevPAR, or think about the Hudson Hotel in New York. If you know your customers, which are worth the most to you, and you know what drinks they like to drink and where they hang out, so which artists you can bring in, and if they have a Netflix account, you can know that because it goes down from your credit card. You want to know all of this data, so the vision is much greater. You can create hotels based on who you want to segment to and how much you want them to spend. I think that data, we are only in the beginning of the days of extracting data, and payment information should definitely be part of the strategy to get it. So have as many payout solutions as you can in payments, because the world is getting flat.
Jonathan, you had a question?
Well, it's on a slightly different topic, so you might want to address it now or not, but it was just really, you guys all add value to the owners, the investors of the industry. I'm just wondering why or what challenges you have at the moment in growing and getting the industry to use your products.
That's a question, but we're going to address that in a minute. I want to work on this one a little further, but Stefan, because you're ideally positioned with Snapshot to actually, possibly, potentially, I should be careful what I say here, provide a service or an advice based on all the data that you extract, and providing the tools that you do to the hotel world. Are you working on this?
I'll mirror the possibility potentially. But the idea is definitely there that at the end of the day, the distribution, the design of your experience in the hotel itself, as well as the customer interaction before and after that experience, could be improved using data. As you said, when you walk into your hotel room, the channels could be up on the screen, the temperature could be set to what you like, the blinds could be up or down based on what you did last time, and the drinks in the minibar could be the ones that you ordered the last time. And that would make the experience better, that would decrease the likelihood of fierce price competition. And we hope that, as Snapshot, that we can support hoteliers in that aspect. Absolutely right, yeah?
Okay. Now back to Jonathan's question. You wanted to know that they're all adding value to the industry.
Yeah, I'm just wondering why some of your products, or perhaps they are taking off, but if they aren't, why aren't they? What are the challenges that you're having at the moment, growing your business? Because to me, all you guys add huge value to the industry.
So I'm not sure that everybody heard that in the back. So what are the challenges you're facing in growing?
We're growing crazy fast, but it could always be faster. And I would put that down to prioritization, like I was saying before. There are just so many things a hotelier can do, and only so many they have time to do. I mean, for us personally, Booking.com started threatening our hotels when they saw the impact we were having on direct bookings. So that led a few hoteliers to say, oh, Booking not going to like us if we do this. So that was an existential threat. And then, in smaller properties.
Anybody from Booking.com here that wants to comment on this? Anybody here?
Luckily, as well as there being a few who said, oh, maybe we shouldn't do this, there were more that said, this must be good, which is nice. And then the last thing is on smaller properties, because a lot of what we do is, you can track data about what happens. But one of the dangers with data is that because there's a number or a chart, that people actually believe it, when in fact there's not statistical validity. And one of the problems with smaller properties is the number of bookings they're getting through their website. It's like a handful a day. And so getting any statistical validity on impact actually is just a complete lottery. You can see 50% uplift, 50% downturn. It's just, so that's a bit of a challenge, that there's not sometimes enough scale for smaller properties to see impact.
What is your conversion at the moment?
What is our conversion? You mean from like when we talk to a hotel and?
No, conversion from OTAs to direct booking.
It slightly depends. So a medium-sized group might see a 20% increase. Smaller hotels will see more than that in increases in direct bookings.
Serious?
Yeah, but sorry, just to make it clear. So what we do is we show on the hotel website live prices from 3 OTAs. So a consumer who is on the hotel website thinking, I want to book here, but it's probably cheaper on Expedia, sees, oh, actually it's the same price, I'll book direct.
That saves an enormous amount of time too.
Yeah.
Excellent. Preben, what is your major challenge?
Well, I think there's one challenge which in the industry, which is for all of us, I think the industry is rather conservative. It's not been used to change so much over its history. It's a very old industry, as we all know. It's been there forever. As long as people can host people in their own cave somewhere many years ago, there's been a hotel industry, and it has been pretty straightforward. The same, you sell a room for a certain price to a certain person, you check them in and you check them out, and you clean the room afterwards. So coming with new ideas and new technology and bring it, you need to kind of get over a hurdle there. And in particular, if the ideas are very new and kind of radical and a bit disrupting, it takes some time before the hoteliers, they kind of get it. And then, but on the other hand, when they finally get the point of what you can bring as a value, then they convert very fast. So then they become a big fan. So, but you have to get over that hurdle, which is the traditional way of doing business. It's still very heavy.
So that's your major challenge. Gon, do you second that? Is that your issue also?
I think that we have 2 products. We have one is Rumor, which is a marketplace where people are buying hotel rooms from other people. And Rumor has become, has grown in the past year. It was chosen by USA Today, which is the most popular newspaper in the US, by its reader and editors as the 3rd best travel website after TripAdvisor, but before Booking.com. And we have the 2nd most engaged Facebook page on even before, if you combine Uber and Airbnb and all of them. So when we have good rooms, we sell them and we move them quite fast. And we created a company called Life Happens, which is basically utilizing our data on cancellations and our ability to resell rooms. And we offer a travel protection when you buy a non-refundable room through the hotel. So when you need to cancel this room, you get a refund, and then we resell that on Rumor. So because that it sits on the booking engine of the hotels, we have hundreds of hotels signed up, which we are now waiting for integration. And I know that others here will share the pain. We're waiting for between 6 months to a year just to integrate it after the hotel said yes. So the level of changes in the technology in the back end are limiting us. especially as the hotels always have other priorities. And even if we are a second or even a first priority, it takes time because the hotels don't manage their technology. So that's one of our, I think, the biggest challenge that impacts our sales cycle the most.
Question.
Can you tell me, please?
Can you say your name, please?
Ray Yunus, Ecologia de Lausanne. Can you tell me, please, what the temperature in your room, guys? Do you know?
What the temperature in the room is?
What the temperature do you have in your room now? Do you know?
Probably what I set it on, it was like 22.
Then why you invented now a new god? Data, information, and people, the customers, they want to have his room under such a temperature. What the color do you want for your carpet? I think that hospitality was also to discover, to surprise the customer. I don't want to feel home. As 20 years ago, at home my wife, she asked me to wash the dishes. And on my property, I want to be surprised. I want something else for your data. Then the data, when you take over this, to have a customer experience is different than to ask the client to choose and to customize his room. I don't want to customize my room. I want to have a decent room, a very nice room. I want to feel good. I want to be surprised. And I don't want to have a Coca-Cola because 2 years ago, I ordered a Coca-Cola. I'm not drinking Coca-Cola today.
Well, there you go, guys.
Okay,
I think,
but wait, so I think you're very fair to challenge some of the examples. However, I don't think that necessarily means that the hotels can't get great value from data. So I'll give you an example that I hope you can't refute. So, I mean, Amazon, one of the reasons Amazon is an insanely effective conversion engine, right, as a business, is because they know what I'm interested in, what I've bought in the past, what other people like me, and that helps them drive more sales. So just purely from the conversion, which is the main thing we focus on, so I can't talk to the Coca-Cola, I think you're quite right on that, by the hotelier's better understanding who the customer is, they can personalize the experience. You're a loyalty member, maybe you get reward points, maybe you have a AAA discount, which we can just make the experience more seamless on the website and increase conversion result. So there's only one, I agree, maybe there are many things thrown around that.
For you, it's interesting because you destabilize your colleagues from the OTA who destabilize hospitality because what you are doing now, they are not happy. As hoteliers, they are not happy. You are using data because you are not in between the check-in and check-out.
Yep.
And in between the check-in and check-out, we are clean up a room 50 years ago in a half an hour and today in 30 minutes. And we are taking...
Excellent.
You guys from technology scenes, and today in neurotechnology we are researching about the future of sleep, the future of dream, what you are offered to the client also when he is in the room. And there's a lot of technology and people then coming from outside, then you create a big challenge for hospitality, I congratulate you, but let's create something, a big challenge for the real experience.
If I may answer to that one, I think we're not talking about technology as a purpose in itself, but as a means to better results that we want in the hotel industry.
No, you talk about something course, you talk about data. And you think that data will be everything. Data is everything as far as we understand what is the meaning of this information and now the chain that you explained it, how we arrive from the data to the customer experience.
I agree with that, but I think that when was the last time you bought something in Blockbuster, or what happened with Blockbuster versus Netflix? I think that data for itself is not the purpose. Rumor and Life Happens, what we do is to reduce cancellation fees because that's an experience that sucks. And I think that hotels and no hotel has solved it in a good way. You either lose money by giving a free cancellation or you're taking money when someone actually had to cancel. And when something bad happens, and unfortunately, life really happens. People die, people get sick, and you need to handle this hospitality. If you weren't a hospitality company, I wouldn't have any value to you. What I'm saying about data is that if you look at what happened to Netflix and how they took on Blockbuster was because that they actually knew what people want. And if you look at House of Cards today, this whole show is built because of what people actually want. I'm not saying that people will not be humans and there will be numbers. I'm saying that you, even as a chef or as a hospitality person, you can, as you read books, you can read your analytics. It's the same thing. It's just another layer to learn from. And if you don't want to learn, then you can keep the minibar. It's the same as it was, and it might work for you.
All right, thanks for going. There's another question there.
Okay. My name is Castagnetti. I'm an Italian hotelier. but I'm not in Rome, and I'm not even in Milan, and I'm not in Venice. I'm in a minor city. I'm also president of Best Western Italy, and we're trying to eliminate or limit the fragmentation of our sector by keeping together, creating the technology, creating the marketing, whatever is necessary. But my real question is, what happens to the independent hotelier who is not in a gateway city or in a place that is really a brand by itself? What is the future in 10 years from now for my colleague investors in these cities? Are they still sitting on a place? Are they still owning something that will help them have a future for their families and for the people that are working for them? Or should I tell them, listen, in 10 years, we are dead? Because this is the problem. You're always talking about very important brands that have the money to bring further, be it Amazon, be it whatever. But the single hotel doesn't have the clue. He can't. And the single hotelier doesn't have the economics to study, to implement all this. Not talking about self-check-in on mobile.
No, but, yeah, go on.
How long can we, independent hotels, last?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
I think first of all, Snapshot Analytics is free, so it isn't a burden on your small hotelier. And the second thing is, I definitely think that in each city, there is a good reason to have a hotel. There's a good reason to run a hotel, and there's definitely a good reason that this be a good business case. I think the change required is that hoteliers, as they as they run their business and are perfect in doing that, they also need to look at what's out there, look at the environment, and take that into their business. And I'm not saying that understanding data is the cure to all evil. I'm absolutely not saying that. But neglecting the fact that you can collect data about your customers and base decisions on that definitely is part of my answer.
Yeah, I'd like to add something to that, if I may. It is not, I mean, we very often talk about what hotels have to offer, but I think we should talk, and that's more on your line as well, in terms of hospitality. We need to make sure that we understand what the consumer wants.
What they want to
and
buy,
the consumer is a changing consumer. A consumer of 30 years ago and a consumer of today is a different kind of consumer, and he uses different tools to find you. There you've got to preempt.
I think you should really demand or ask the question from the flag you're paying for, Best Western in this case, what's the direct bookings that they're giving you? Because if you compare that to what happens today between Uber and taxis, if you look at the medallion prices that people paid 10 years ago and the prices today, they went down. So I think that we're still not, I'm not an hotelier myself, but I think that you should really ask if in 5 years from now, and I'm just throwing that to the air, your medallion or the flag will be a Booking.com one because it brings you the technology there. That's how dangerous it is to outsource technology. That's what I think. But I think that Booking.com are creating value, and I think that the hotels can create value. This is a question that I don't know how to answer. I'm just saying that the metrics I would look at is how strong is your brand, and to understand that the competition today in Abruzzo or in Assisi is also the similar that happens in Rome. You're competing with Airbnb, you're competing with HomeAway, you're competing with new services that are still not created. And I think that that's the main question I would ask my
Yeah, I want to give you some confidence. I am going to be traveling personally to Italy for the rest of my life because I just love it. Like, there's reasons why people come and stay at your hotel today, and those reasons aren't going away unless you're doing... Now, I do believe there's a risk that some of the large digital players, as more people shift bookings online, will squeeze your margins. I think that's a real risk. But it's not that your hotel disappears or that the need for people to visit your city or in the middle of nowhere disappears.
Last one for now, yeah.
I think that on the property level, as an operator, developer of hotels in Israel, I think that the biggest challenge for us is to cope with all that. I mean, at the end of the day, the average hotelier on the property level is very, very nice, but not very, very bright.
And that's why we have Snapshot.
Yeah, but you have
Yeah, it's hard.
It's a bazillion. Yeah, I agree. It's a bazillion of solutions out there, and I understand that it's hard to find the right one. And coming back to your question, I think so many businesses now want to support hoteliers that they're overrun. If you're in a big city in London, then every hour somebody wants to knock on your door and say, I have the solution to help your business. Here I am. Use this, use that. That's hard. I can understand. Yeah.
There is a natural ebb and flow of innovation, right? So I think at the moment there is an explosion of the last 4 years of new businesses. There will be consolidation, and you'll be offered things like us together. I think that will happen.
And hopefully the workforce will become more and more tech savvy.
Well, they should.
They don't have the capacity to deal with all those
aspects
of the daily operations.
I think that's a great question, because at the end of the day, they are more tech savvy already because they grew up with their computer and their iPhone. But the technology that most hoteliers are using is back from the 1980s, and they are not tech savvy in that. They cannot operate a VCR, but they can use Netflix. So
don't underestimate experience as well. You know,
of course. I agree, but
we cannot let a 150 or 200 room hotel run by a 21-year-old that just knows what's going on the iPhone, but doesn't know many other aspects of running.
I think that the good news are that no one can replace you on hospitality. That's the good news. It doesn't matter if it's an OTA or rumor or a brand. You are the ones who will welcome the guest. Without you, there is nothing to sell on any OTA, and there is nothing to sell in any brand without you. I think that if I was now a hotelier, I would leverage as much as a word-to-mouth authentic marketing from Facebook to Twitter to social media, which is really creating unique experiences, leveraging your own customers and your own hospitality, and will help you create ongoing engagement. That's how you shift those things. There are many things to do, and I think that companies like Triptease and Charlie are helping. I know that there is a flood, but there are good companies that have proven results that will help you with more direct bookings and retention.
Okay, guys, we've got a quick question there. Yep.
Just a very interesting comment yesterday from the President CEO of Hilton, saying that as hospitality, we shouldn't worry about Airbnb. We should. There's the lodging industry, and then there's the hospitality industry, and that we should focus on hospitality. I thought that was a very interesting statement.
Oh, that's one of the questions that's going to come up. I've got 3 words. We're coming to the end, and I'll predict what we're going to do. There's 3 words we're going to group, and we're going to get a quick reaction out of our panel, and then there's a final round that I'm going to ask. Indeed, the word Airbnb, we can't avoid it. Friend or foe? Charlie?
Oh.
Hit off. Come on.
Foe.
Foe.
If I have to pick one.
Good.
I mean, I think it's a segmented answer, but yeah, okay, foe.
Yeah. So it's a threat. Okay. Preben, what do you think?
Well, directly Airbnb is a foe, but the principle of the sharing economy is a friend if you turn it right.
There you go. That's gone.
I think that I agree with what was said about regulation. I don't know enough about the regulation, but if it's regulated like HomeAway, it can be a friend. And I think that if I was a hotelier, I would put my hotel in as many distribution platforms as I can that create value for me. And Airbnb is another platform. That's how I look at it.
Stefan?
I would kind of challenge the view that you can segment hospitality in so many different industries and then say somebody who's doing hospitality in that segment isn't a competitor. I think that's if I would use a quote from my former boss at Google, Eric Schmidt said that somewhere in a garage somebody is gunning at us right now. And I think the level of complacency that I would read into that statement is dangerous.
Yeah. Okay. Right, so let's move to the next word. Google. There we go. Are they going to enter? Is it a threat? Is it a partner? Is it an enemy? Or is it an information channel? Go on.
It's a friend with benefits.
Excellent.
Yeah, and
I think that's the answer, no?
Yeah, and because that, whatever they do, they will they're going to charge you either by selling your data or by selling you ads. That's the two play there.
I think it's a friend if you use it correctly. So if you manage to reach your audience, I don't think that, my personal belief is that they would not be competing with the OTAs over time. It's a B2B business. It's you know, the OTAs is their biggest clients almost. So because they're paying tens of millions of dollars of Google AdWords in there. So so I would say if you look at it from a hotel's point of view, it's a friend.
Friend of the partner. Yeah. Charlie?
I just find it absolutely fascinating that as an opportunity, the potential for friendship, because of all those Android handsets out there and Apple handsets with Chrome on them, and the shift for people's session times being in the mobile browser, not on the mobile app. I think that the opportunity for Google to dictate so much more the channels down which people spend their travel research and money is extraordinary. But it's yet to see what comes of it.
I think I have to skip you.
Yeah, you have to. I sold Google Ads for 5 years, so...
Friend, of course it's a friend. Friend with benefits. I love that one. All right. The last one, Apple. Is Apple going to play a role at some point in the hospitality industry? Short answers. Go on. Yes. Good. That's a very short one. A short one with a little bit of an add-on. Let's go for it. Charlie.
Yeah, I hope they nail payments and make it much easier for people to pay and on their mobiles, which would be great for hotels.
Yeah, as a platform, as a hardware platform to be able to show your apps and in an easy way, hotel companies can tailor and customize the stay of a guest. It's a wonderful tool. I have it last year.
There you go. Stefan, I need your one on this one.
Yeah, I think if a hotelier can integrate the iPhone into the entire experience of booking, staying in a hotel, then it would be great. It's the tool that everybody has always on. It's always with you. It knows everything about you. Why can't this be the tool to make it easy for you to check in, check out? Why can't this be the tool to open your hotel room? I think it's more than just Apple. It's the mobile phone in itself, where I once read the statistic, it's quite old already, that 19-year-olds in Germany would rather ditch their friend or their girlfriend than ditching their mobile phone. So the importance of that device cannot be underestimated. And it should be integrated into the entire experience of booking and being in a hotel.
Excellent, good. Okay, the last round for every one of you. I'm going to start again with Gon. Is your business model sustainable?
Yes, because as long as we create value for the hotels, the customers, and to ourselves.
Good. Preben?
Yes, again, creating value, if you can bring value, and there will always be those 30 to 35% of the rooms which will not be sold, even if you're really good at yield management.
So you'll be here in the next 20 years?
I'll be there.
Excellent. Good. Charlie?
Yeah.
Are you going to be here?
I think so, and we'll buy more companies so we can just give you one partner service. Totally sustainable. Yeah, hotels love what we do. We're here forever.
Excellent. Now the most important one is you on this one.
I think the business model of Snapshot is sustainable if our plea that hotel managers need to incorporate data in making decisions, not slavishly following data in making decisions, but using data to make their decisions, is adopted. If that is adopted, then we're here to stay.
Excellent. Final questions, maybe 1 minute, and then we have to call it a day for this one. Anybody? Thank you very much. Thanks to the panel. Thank you. I think it was very helpful. Thank you very much.